This message is brought to you by Apple Card. Shave ice by the beach. A trip to the state fair. And a throwback flick at the local drive-in. They're more than just items to check off the summer bucket list. They're also opportunities to earn 2% daily cash back when you use your Apple Card with Apple Pay. Apply for Apple Card now and use in minutes with Apple Pay. Subject to credit approval. Apple Card is issued by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, Salt Lake City branch. Terms and more at applecard.com.
Here's your report.
Oh, thanks, Jane. I wish I could hire someone just like you.
Try LinkedIn Hiring Pro. It's more than a job board. It's like the recruiter you always wished you had. Hiring Pro uses real-time insights to match your role to LinkedIn's unique network of professionals and delivers a short list of best fit candidates. You'll spend less time sorting applicants and more time talking to the right people.
Let's do it. You're irreplaceable, Jane, but another you would be great.
Hire right the first time. Post your job for free on LinkedIn today at linkedin.com/quality.
Hear that? That's now Crispy and McCrispy strips meeting Creamy Caesar sauce. Sounds extra crispy. Caesar sauce at McDonald's for a limited time. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Hello and welcome to Haway the podcast. It's Martin here, and we've got another Q&A episode for you today. Now, if you're a regular listener to the pod, you'll have heard our Q&A episode last week, in which James and Ian talked all about transfers, team selections, and, as it turned out, our former goalkeeper, Tommy Robinson. We've had a load of questions left over, so we thought we'd do another episode covering those questions off. And I've got two people with me this morning who've always got a boatload of answers ready to share. They're not always the right answers, but the answers nonetheless. So first of all, we'll say good morning to Gav. Hello, mate.
Hiya, mate. Yes, I'm not claiming to be the fountain of knowledge, but I'll try my best.
Fountain of opinions rather than fountain of knowledge. That's all we want, Gav.
Yeah.
And we've also got Chris with us. It's a rare hat trick for the three of us to be on the same pod. And here we are, Chris, just a couple of weeks before the season starts. And you're ready and refreshed. You're looking fresh as a daisy, mate, after a holiday, aren't you?
Yeah, been away with the kids, so I'm absolutely knackered. Been eating crap for a week and chasing after them on the beach and all that sort of stuff. So I am absolutely knackered. And yes, I like, you know, in keeping with some of the pods we've had recently, I think maybe the fountain of shite opinions, I think maybe apt for us answering some of these questions. I reckon.
There's the pod title.
Done.
It's done. We'll start off, though, talking about the game on Saturday, Gav. We obviously had the friendly game against Lons. We won a cup made of coal, which is a nice way to start the season off.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a good performance, I think, wasn't it? I listened to the review pod that you and Kelvin and Andrew did after the game.
And James.
And James, that's right. And I think all of you were pretty impressed with the way that the team played and how things panned out.
It couldn't have went really much better. I think if we were complaining, there would only probably be the knock that Dan Ballard seemed to take at the point in the game when he went off. But otherwise, it was flawless for us. Really, we played really, really well. We were utterly dominant for 90 minutes. I didn't think Lons had a single spell in the game, so it was all us. The subs made a difference, as they often do under Reggie. You know, he tweaks things late in games, and it normally comes off. And we scored some nice goals. I mean, that's all I wanted to see from the game, really, is to see a step up in improvement in the performance levels and maybe a little bit more quality in front of goal. And obviously, it was nice to see some players back as well in Granit Xhaka and Thomas Meunier making his debut, who actually looked really, really good as well. Had a rusty sort of 30 seconds or so where he got his first touch of the ball, which is understandable. But after that, when he was bombing on and making those late runs in from the back post, he actually scored a goal which was ruled offside because of somebody else in the build-up of the goal. But he headed it past the goalkeeper and got into a good position. So yeah, I mean, there was no complaints whatsoever. I think we seem to be coming out of all of these games, even the ones we've lost. We seem to be coming out of them with real positives and things to take forward into the next game in pre-season, and it's setting us up really, really nicely for that final game of pre-season next week. So yeah, over the moon, mate. And I think it was good as well for the 1,500 fans who went to France to see that kind of performance. when you're making all of that effort to get to a game, you don't want to see a reserve team, do you? You want to see
No,
Granit
that's right.
Xhaka play, and you want to see Enzo Lafay play, and you want to see, Brobbey play and Wilson Isidore play. And that's exactly what they got, and they got to travel home very, very happy with a European victory. Hopefully, it's not the last one they'll see this year.
Let's hope not. And Chris, I think there's been a few headlines made about Regis Labriss's comments after the game. And he said he was hoping to get in 2, 3 or 4 players by the end of the season, end of the transfer window. And it seemed to contradict some statement he made maybe after the York game where he talked, maybe 6 players, I think he said, against York, didn't he? But then also at York, he's maybe said a lower number as well. Is it much of a surprise that we're going for 2, 3 or 4 players rather than 6 or 7? Is he setting expectations a bit lower? What's going on there, do you think?
For a start, I'm having nightmares about what my kids might say if you keep saying 6, 7, because they're still going on with that. But I think is it Reggie's mind games? Is he playing with the press a little bit? Because we were just talking before we started recording that back in the start of pre-season, people were asking him, and he was saying 3 and 4, and then he was saying 6 and 7, then he's back to 3 and 4. But the thing is that this might be dependent on what he's getting from upstairs. So people might be talking to him saying, right, actually, we've got these offers in, and we're hoping to bring this amount of players in. And then maybe over the course of the summer, it's kind of changing, and the picture's changing depending on maybe who's stepping up as well. Because you're wondering we've got a lot of young players. I mean, we've got a lot of unknowns. Tarby for a start. Regis Labriss seems to like him. Now, he played fantastically well in a top under-21 tournament for the Ivory Coast. And they might think, actually, at the start of the summer, how much of an option was he? And then maybe as the summer's gone on, they might think, he's more of an option or whatever. Chris Rigg, he's come into pre-season. He's looked sharp. He's looked stronger. He's looked a different player. And all these other players, I made the point earlier on in pre-season. I think Ian made the point, if I remember rightly as well, on, I think it was the Q&A pod that you did. I can't remember which one it was now. But Ian made the point as well to back up that all these young players are going into their second season in the Premier League. So in theory, they're all improving. They've all had a year under their belts, and they'll all be better players this season for that. So all of this goes into the mix that things change, and it might be him. Is it him saying what he wants, or is it him saying what the club's expectations are? Which, you would like to think they're aligned, but I would guess that what he's saying is a combination of the two, because he's not the type to come out and go, if the club tell him upstairs and say, look, we'll probably bring 5 players in. He's not the type to then come out in the press and cause problems by saying, I want 10 players to supplement this squad. So he's not going to cause problems. So it's kind of a collective club answer when he's facing these questions. And like I said, the club might turn around and say, actually, we thought about bringing 6 or 7 in, but because maybe let's say we sign the left back we're after, and we spend 30, 35 million on him, potentially even a little bit more, with add-ons and things like that, because with negotiations, they might say, actually, we spent a bit more than we thought on a left back, so we might not bring as many in. We might now bring 4 players in. So I think it's always shifting. So I'm not kind of holding Regis Labriss too much to what he's saying, because I think that the club know what they're doing. Just quickly on the game, watching Thomas Meunier for the first time, he doesn't look like a fullback, does he? He's a proper unit. He looks like a very skillful, accomplished centre half playing at fullback, but he loves getting forward. I mean, for his size, you just think he shouldn't be able to play like that. And I tell you what, I mean, he's going to be a bit of a weapon at the back post, isn't he? If flinging that ball up to the back post, and he loves getting forward, like we said. So yeah, that's going to be one to watch this season. But yeah, in terms of how many we'll bring in, I'm still relaxed. I think they've got high priorities, and they're going to fill those gaps. And I expect it to be very targeted, and I don't think it'll be as many as 6 or 7.
The word that Labris used in that conversation was precise, and it's.
Yeah.
I really think it's about getting the right players into the right positions and not getting numbers in for the sake of it. And they've obviously got a number of targets who they want to get in, who they've identified to take places in this team or compete for places in the team. And I do think it's a case that if the season started tomorrow, or the transfer window even shut tomorrow, they'd actually be relatively content with going into the first half of the season with the squad that we've already got. So I think it's going to be, if the right players become available for the right price and they get the right deal done, absolutely get them in the door. But otherwise, they'll probably wait and bide the time.
Yeah, and I think when we're talking numbers that he mentions, he's clever. He doesn't want to say it too much. If he comes out and says, yeah, I want 6 or 7, and then we only sign 3 or 4, then people are going to hold him to that. So say 2, 3, 4, keep it very vague and low, and we'll see what happens. I think the club will always look to strengthen if the option is there to do it, and that's in every position. So it just totally depends on what's to come, really. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen over the summer. Deals might come up that weren't there previously. We might have, players that we thought we had lined up might not come off because the club they come from might not want to sell them or whatever. Things can change day to day, and we can't. I think it's mental what the Hull owner's doing, where he's tweeting out hints and clues of who they're signing and how far off each deal is, because he's just setting himself up for a fall. It's not the done way, really, and I would rather we were very vague and we kept these things close to our chest. But the word precise was the one that stood out to me when I listened to that interview on BBC Sounds yesterday with Nick Barnes, and people can dig that out. I think Barnes, he might have tweeted it, so just look on his Twitter page to get the link for that. But it's on BBC Sounds, and he spoke to Regis after the game, and the word was precise. We have to be precise, and I think that's the bit that's kind of eluding some fans who are getting a little bit tetchy. We aren't. So, what do you think people think are happening here? Do they think we're skint? Do they think we don't want to spend money? Do they think we're penny pinching over certain players? Or is it just that we know what we're doing and there's a time and a place to strike, and that isn't now? It's probably going to happen, we're going to probably see a lot of movement in the last week of the window. That's, if you look, particularly since Kirill came in, that's generally been the case. Last year was an outlier. Last summer, we had to sign players early. We had to get players in as early as possible to make sure we started the season well, because the squad wasn't good enough. This squad's brilliant. We could name 2 full 11s of players and it would be 2 strong teams. We've got a very, very good squad. So what we've got to do is bring in players of the level of the best players we've got. And I'm thinking Enzo, Xhaka, Mukiele, Ballard, Roofs, Brobby, that level of player. Those are players who would get into most teams in the Premier League. Now, if those players aren't available right now, the ones we've got in mind, we've just got to bide our time. It'll be fine. I would be amazed if we're sat here the day the transfer window shuts, we haven't got what we need. And what we need right now is, I think we need a first choice right winger. I think everybody is pretty set on that, even though we've got players who can play there and do a great job. And I like Rigg there and I like Hume there. I think Hume's actually grown in that role over pre-season and is kind of showing people why he plays there. But we do need someone who can cut inside on the left foot, take people on, that Ahmad type of wide forward, which we've seen before at Sunderland. We need one of them, undoubtedly. After that, I think you're actually humming and hawing over what we actually need, and that's a good thing. That shows how good the squad is. So let's have faith and be patient. And I think we've been saying this for weeks, because we've been having the same conversations for weeks. I think everyone's fully aware of what we do need, but it's not that much really. And if we're sat here in a couple of weeks without what we need, I'd be amazed. I'd be absolutely amazed.
Yeah, and just quickly, I'd have, I think the club consider a left back to be up there with that right midfielder. But just about the word precise, I would even go to the lengths of saying about Mayenda, replacing Mayenda, because I remember there was some comments Regis Labris made about having Brobby, Isidore and Mayenda last season. And a couple of times, because when people were saying, oh, is it is Isidore going to get more chances? Is Mayenda going to get more minutes? Blah, blah, blah. And he was saying it's tough because I've got the perfect three that complement each other, that have all got different attributes that I can use in different games. And I wouldn't be surprised if we try to replace Mayenda with another very quick player who can take turn, carry the ball, and can play out wide as well. Because I think Register Bliss doesn't necessarily want a Brobby Mark II to come through and play like Brian Brobby. He wants options. And I think having those three gave him the perfect front three to mix it up and to play different ways. So I reckon, talking about being precise, I wouldn't be surprised if that attacking option is a Mayenda sort of player who's quick, can turn and play out wide.
Yeah, and he said after the game as well about Isidore, doesn't he? I think Phil Smith asked him about the speculation surrounding Isidore because there's been reports this week that Hull and Ipswich have made bids for him. And he was like, it's the most straightforward I think he's ever been on a transfer story. He went, you can write this, he's going nowhere. He's part of our plans. We can't play 55. He said 55 games, which was interesting. He's hoping to win the Europa League. But he said we can't play 55 games with one striker, and he's right. So yeah, we've what we're talking about is somebody to complement the strikers, somebody to complement the fullbacks, somebody to complement the centre halves, somebody to complement the midfield players, somebody to complement the wingers. We're not looking at the team and going, Jesus Christ, we are desperate. We're not, because we aren't. So what is the panic about? I wish I could grab these people. I see it. I see it. I open Facebook, Twitter, whatever, and I shouldn't do it, but I know I do. I open these things and I see people panicking. I just want to grab them and go, what are you panicking about? What is there to worry about? Have you watched this team for the last year and a bit? We don't need to panic. So just calm the fuck down. It's not hard.
Just on that Isidore thing as well, that's a perfect conversation to have with players like Isidore. When if you turn around and say to Isidore, right, well, do you want to go to Hull and play 30 odd games and maybe probably have a season where you're really struggling and you're getting one chance every 2 games or something? Or actually, if you only play half the games at Sunderland this season, you might play 25 or even a few more games. You might play between 25 and 30 games by just playing half the games. So, I mean, if then you turn around and say, actually, you're not playing that much fewer games, and you're playing for, hopefully, touch wood, a better side, which we should be on paper and everything. So if that's a brilliant conversation I have to say with Isidore, do you really want to sign for one of those teams, or do you want to stay here and play 25 games, even though on paper it sounds rubbish when you say half? Still a lot of games he might play.
But it's half the starting half the games potentially, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then sub appearances in others. You know, somebody who's not a regular could very easily end up with 40 appearances this season because of the amount of games that we have to play. And it's so interesting the amount of the need that people have to see transfers go on. And last season was exciting. We all enjoyed it, and we all enjoyed seeing all these names come in early on in the season. But the club had to do that then. The club had to build a new team, so we had to get players in. And even at the time, journalists from overseas who watch these players were saying, you probably overspent a little bit on that player, or that player could have done with another season where they are before they get a big move. But we went early on and we paid what we needed to do to get them into training so LeBris could work with them. We don't need to do that now. We're adding 1 or 2 quality players if they become available to an already good squad. And like Gav, I agree with you in terms of we need a right winger and Chris with a left back. I still maintain that Trey Hume will be playing that role on the right-hand side of the midfield for the first chunk of the season. And a right winger might get a chance coming off the bench, give us something different if we need a goal, all that sort of stuff. But I think you can see what he's trying to do in pre-season, can't he? He's building that role for the Hume and building on some fantastic performances towards the end of last season. We will get to the Q&As now, and we've mentioned Hull a couple of times. And I'm going to take a question from James Stevenson from X. So, Chris, I'm going to come to you first of all with this one. James says, given we were in this position last season, who out of Hull, Coventry and Ipswich do you most likely think have a chance of staying up?
Oh, hang on a minute.
We're going to get played back on podcasts at the end of next season, aren't we? I've been set up here.
I can see that. I can see that.
This is where I'm really happy I'm hosting. I'm shoving it to you.
Like, if you want to, if we've got the video on, you'd see him sitting back in his chair, with a big cigar, going, "Go on then, lads, knock this one out the park." All right then, cheers, mate. Stick this one at us. Well, I tell you what, I will start off by saying, and again, I'm likely going to be clipped with this, but the whole Coventry thing and everything around Coventry at the moment, and this, it's almost like an assumption in the media that they're going to do what we did last season. And I don't get it. Everyone's going, "Oh, Lampard's now this messiah, and Coventry are going to finish in the European places, and they're going to," and it's almost like there is no questioning in the media or anybody what I've seen in doing predictions where they seem to go, "Oh, Coventry, they'll be fine," and I don't get it. I don't get that they'll suddenly, yeah, okay, they smashed the championship, but how many times did we see? Actually, can you remember when Fulham were bouncing up and down? Burnley? I mean, Burnley finished 20 odd points ahead of us, if not more. And then they bombed and didn't get the recruitment right. I have to admit, I will find it hard to answer the questions because I haven't really been keeping up to date with who they've been signing. But the question is, who out of Hull, Coventry and Ipswich do you most likely think have the chance to stay up? I think Ipswich will struggle because they've lost McKenna, and I think that's just an unbelievable blow for them. I think they've got to basically restart. And if you think he brought them up from League One, and they didn't have a fantastic kind of summer in terms of recruiting for the Premier League, and then they went down, and then I think it's all a bit confused at Ipswich because after a promotion they're starting again, which isn't really the normal place to start again. I just think it's going to be a bit confused there for a season. Hull, as Gav said, I just think it's all a bit mad at Hull, especially with the struggle to. I think they had an embargo for the first part of the summer, if that's right, or they had restrictions on signing players or something like that. Or
There's something weird to do with that.
They had to get rid of players before they could sign, something like that. But I think they'll struggle because they were starting off with a disadvantage. I'm going to have to say Coventry are the most likely to stay up, but I just can't see what people are predicting. I can't see it being comfortable. I think they'll be in the bottom five, and they're there or thereabouts. But I just think they're going to be looking over their shoulders. I don't think they're going to be doing what we did. And that can be clipped if it needs to be at the end of the season when they qualify for a Champions League place. But as it stands, I can't see it.
It's interesting, isn't it, Gav? Because you had this whole feeling when we went up last season that none of the promoted sides would stay up, and everyone was predicting us to finish 20th. And our transfer business, our transfer model, was very different to what has been seen before. We kind of did it in a different way, and it's a method that actually the Coventry chairman criticised at the end of last season. Said we're not going to do what Sunderland did. We're not going to do X, Y, and Z. And then all of a sudden they've signed a few players from overseas, and people are talking about, oh, they're actually trying to do what Sunderland did, which is a nice sort of contradiction. But I do think like for the good of football, it's healthy for promoted clubs to stay up, because we saw it before last season, didn't we? Where we'd had 2 or 3 years where the 3 promoted clubs had gone up. They basically just resigned themselves to relegation before the season kicked off, got the money in, went back down, tried to give it another go. And it looked for a while like the Premier League was going to be a closed shop. Now, for a healthy Premier League, you've got to have teams coming up and be able to compete. And, whether us and Leeds have given Hull, Coventry and Ipswich fans and the media and the clubs themselves a little bit of hope that it actually is possible to come up and stay up, that's just got to be good for football, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's not good for us because I can't stand Coventry fans. So if we've got to keep playing them every bloody year, then, I won't particularly enjoy that. But I agree generally. I think it's good for the game if we have the best run clubs in the country. I think I would say, rather than promoted clubs, I would say the best run clubs in the country competing in the top league. I think if you're a badly run club, you get found out very quickly. Spurs have survived by the skin of their teeth, and they've shit themselves over the summer, and they've tried to make sure that doesn't happen again. because for 2 years running, they finished a place above relegation. And for a club the size of Spurs, that shouldn't even be in the question. But it's a reminder to all of these big clubs that if you're not buttoned up, it doesn't take long before you're looking down the barrel of a gun. And I'm looking at the Mags up the road when I say that, because they've lost so much over the summer, and you can see them struggling. And the Mags are unfortunately, they're one of the biggest clubs in the country. So, if you're not particularly well run, it doesn't matter how big you are. Bournemouth play with 11,000 fans, yet every single year they improve. They produce players that top clubs want to sign. They've qualified for Europe. So it doesn't matter. To me, it doesn't matter if you're coming into the Premier League where you're a smaller club. You've got less expectation. Everyone's thinking you're going to go down. I don't think that particularly matters if you're a well-run club, because you will find advantages over the season. You'll find advantages in the transfer market. And that's what the promoted clubs this year have got to do, and maybe look to us in Leeds and say, what did they get right and what can we learn from that? Don't copy us. It's not that easy, Everybody in football thinks that the way to do it is to go out, find good young prospects, develop them, sell them on, improve. Like that's the goal of every single club, but it isn't that easy. If it was, everyone would do it. We just managed to absolutely nail it last season. And Coventry, in particular, this summer, have, despite what their owner said, which was a really bizarre thing, they've then gone out and spent something like 70, 80 million on 4 or 5 players already. I think might even be more. So they have ripped it up a little bit. And that probably does give them a decent chance of staying up. But Burnley did that last year. Burnley went out and spent almost as much as we did, and they were terrible. So I think for all of these clubs, you've got to swallow your pride a bit and realise that team that got you promoted is not going to win enough games. It just will not win enough games. It's not possible. Been proven time and time again. You have to recruit. You have to recruit strong players. If they've had that moment of realisation over the summer, and I don't know if they have, fans of those clubs will be able to tell us if they have. But if they have had that moment of realisation, they've got half a chance of staying up.
Yeah.
The only club to me out of the three who seem, even though it's a bit mental, is Hull, because at least their owner is trying to bring players in. Their squad wasn't good. It was barely good enough to finish in the top 6 in the Championship. So I've got a feeling of the 3 clubs, Hull have got the best chance, weirdly. Even if it is a bit mental. It feels a bit Watford. It feels a bit crazy. But I've just got to, if I was going to make a bold prediction and say one of these 3 teams might stay up, it might be them, But I think they're all facing an uphill battle. The one who I think definitely won't stay up is Ipswich. And you can clip us on that, I don't care. I think they've learned nothing from their last stint in the Premier League. They spent a fortune on Championship players last time around. They've been promoted again. Yeah, they've lost their manager, which is a big blow. But their recruitment's been weird. They've signed some, they signed a lad from Burnley. I hadn't even realised had played for Burnley.
Yeah.
He played nearly every week for them, and I'm going, I've never heard of him. And I looked at it, and he played like 35 games in the Premier League, spent 20-odd million on him. And I just think, have you learned anything, really? Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Well, just quickly, what I will say about the Premier League, though, and I'm with Gav, actually, that it is nice when teams stop up. Of course, we did that. But I think it is about having the best run clubs in the Premier League, because that just means you've got it makes it the best league in the world if you've got the best teams in there. But what I will say is, at the moment, for the average football fan, and for the likes of Sunderland fans, for the likes of, I'm just looking at the table now, Fulham fans, Palace fans, Everton, all of those teams, Brightons, your Bournemouths and all that, people, these clubs where you look at where they've been finishing for the last God knows how many years, where it's been in that middle pack, I don't think there's ever been as much churn in the top 6 as there has been at the moment. And I think at the moment there's a perfect opportunity for people to jump into that top 6 and almost establish yourself. Because if you look at the moment, Man United are potentially all over the shop. Nobody really knows how Carrick will start that season. Man City have now lost Pep. Who knows what's going to happen with Man City? They might need a few years to get back to it. Liverpool are in a strange position. Chelsea are in an odd position. So that, and Spurs are definitely trying to get back from finishing the bottom 4 or 5 for the last couple of seasons. that traditional top six has kind of been smashed wide open. And we're not turning around this season going, right, we know what the top six is going to be, and it's just whatever order that might be in, especially the top two. Although it's likely to be Arsenal, Man City, but we'll see how it goes. But it's not nailed on like it normally is. And I do think for teams that get it right and are well run, we I mean, touch wood, and all this, but I'm looking and we're biding our time, we're being patient. There's an opportunity for a really well run club to establish themselves in that top six for a decent while to come, because other clubs are really trying to establish themselves again and to sort themselves out after a wobble. And so I think it's the most interesting Premier League for a long time because there's so many unknowns. I mean, those stats about like managers, was it 12 or something have got new managers or something like that? The stats on that are ridiculous. The Premier League's just nuts this season. There's just loads of people starting from scratch. And it's a great opportunity because we're in this period of stability and not many teams are in the Premier League.
No, that's right. And I think, while clubs may look from the outside at our transfer sort of strategy last season and go, oh, they signed a load of young players who were promising, had potential, paid a decent amount of money for them, chucked them in, blah, blah, blah. The biggest bit about our transfer strategy last summer was Granit Xhaka and Nordi Mukiele getting experience in, getting the off-the-field stuff sorted out properly, and getting true leadership in that dressing room. And you look at the transfer activity that Hull, Coventry and Ipswich have undertaken so far, I don't see any of that. You look at Coventry and, Gav, you're right, they've spent a lot of money so far, but a third of that's been on the goalkeeper who they had on loan last season. So it's not as if they've improved the side in that respect from last season, they've just maintained what they had from last season. And that's been a massive chunk of their budget. So it's going to be so interesting, but I would love a promoted side to steal. And if that's Coventry at the expense of Newcastle, I would happily go for that. We will take a very short break, ponder that scenario, and have a couple of ads and be back soon.
This message is brought to you by Apple Card. Shave ice by the beach. A trip to the state fair. And a throwback flick at the local drive-in. They're more than just items to check off the summer bucket list. They're also opportunities to earn 2% daily cash back when you use your Apple Card with Apple Pay. Apply for Apple Card now and use in-minutes with Apple Pay. Subject to credit approval. Apple Card is issued by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, Salt Lake City branch. Terms and more at applecard.com.
Here's your report.
Oh, thanks, Jane. I wish I could hire someone just like you.
Try LinkedIn Hiring Pro. It's more than a job board. It's like the recruiter you always wished you had. Hiring Pro uses real-time insights to match your role to LinkedIn's unique network of professionals and delivers a shortlist of best fit candidates. You'll spend less time sorting applicants and more time talking to the right people.
Let's do it. You're irreplaceable, Jane, but another you would be great.
Hire right the first time. Post your job for free on LinkedIn today at linkedin.com/quality.
Welcome back to Haway, the podcast. We've got a Q&A episode for you today, and Gav and Chris are with me to answer a few questions. Now, Gav, we've got a couple of questions here about off-field stuff, which I think is interesting. And obviously, this time of year as well, some of the off-field stuff comes into the spotlight a little bit more than on-field stuff. And the membership scheme that was announced at the start of the season and the subsequent stuff about ticket sales and all that sort of stuff has raised a few questions. Now, Steve Richards has asked, do you think the sale of tickets through external hospitality companies is a good thing? James Copley, obviously of the Sunderland Echo, of course, expressed some concerns given the introduction of the membership scheme. For exiles like me, it's maybe another route to get to games, but is it just another way to generate money? And Alan Davis, on a linked point, I think it's a linked point, we can link it anyway, he says, do you think I am right to be suspicious about Tom Burwell? I'm worried that tourists are going to be put ahead of proper fans. So there's a couple of things there. Obviously, it's linked because Tom Burwell came in initially as interim CEO, I think, didn't he? And he was appointed with very little fanfare as permanent CEO. And, there's been some questions, but I think you've spoken to him or been in his presence at an event at the stadium, right, haven't you? But first of all, in terms of the membership scheme, tickets through external hospitality companies and all that sort of stuff, how's that sitting with you at the moment?
It's tough because I'm a fan who has a season ticket, so I'm I'm not under pressure to get tickets for home games. I can go to any home game I want because I've got a season ticket. So that I don't have to worry about. If I was somebody who didn't have a season ticket and I was seeing that there were ways to cut corners, I might be a little bit more bothered about it. But I'm really struggling with this because I get why it's happening. The club have to make money in any way they can in order to ensure that on the pitch we put out the best possible team. That is the way it has to be, to ensure that we have a team on the pitch that is competitive at the top of the Premier League. That means that we have to do some horrible things that people don't like. And other clubs also do that. And the Premier League is the biggest sporting league in the world. You know, the Premier League makes more money, generates more money, has the biggest franchises, teams, clubs, supporter bases, you know, the best-selling merchandise of, I would presume, any sport in the world. And that is because of the increased commercialization of the game. And whether we like that or not, that's the way it's gone. I think Chris said this the other week. We were talking about the membership scheme, and he was kind of saying, you know, this is the way things are trending, and it's either you get on board with it and you embrace it a little bit, or you're in danger of being left behind slightly. Now, the people who will be affected by that are fans, because we were the ones going along in League One when we couldn't sell out half the stadium, never mind a full stadium, when the Premier Concourse wasn't even open because there wasn't the interest in going to see Sunderland play. Like, you know, so those people who were going along in them days and remember how it used to be when it was very easy to get tickets, probably did feel a little bit cheated. And I can completely understand that, but I just think this is the way it is. And whether that's the right attitude to have or not is completely up for debate. There'll be people sitting listening to me right now at home thinking, that's a shit way of looking at it, really. You know, what about me? What about my kids? Why can't it be easier for us? And unfortunately, the stadium isn't big enough to satisfy the demand of all of the supporters who want to go to games now. And until they extend the stadium, there are going to be things like this. Now, the hospitality situation, again, it's a way of making money in it. That's why they've done it. It's a cash grab. You know, these are all ways of making money. Rather than sell a ticket for 40, 50 quid, they can sell it for 180 quid with a bit of hospitality on the end of it. You know, you get access to whatever area the hospitality section, you might get a bit of food included, and also you don't have to enter ballots for tickets. That if I was someone maybe in your position, Martin, who you know you're coming over in May or April or March or whatever, and you have to get tickets to the game because you're over, you're probably more likely to pay them prices, aren't you? Let's be honest, than me.
It's interesting. So, like the membership scheme is something I've got a real gripe about, and I think it's been really, really badly thought out. So, obviously, for people who aren't aware, I live in Australia. I try to go over at least once a year, go to some games. I'm coming over in March, April, as Gav says. I've had to pay 70 quid for me and my lad to have a chance of buying a ticket for the one home game that's on when I'm over. 70 quid for a chance of buying one game. Now, on the website, it says if you're a supporter who lives overseas, you can email this address and blah, blah, blah. I've emailed it 3 times. Haven't had any response. So I paid 70 quid to go essentially into a ballot to get a ticket for the one game I can go to at the stadium like this season. Actually, it might be 2 if we're in the Europa League semi-finals. That's another thing altogether. So, you know, I actually think it's been really badly thought out because in Australia here, NRL clubs and A-League clubs, which is the rugby league and the A-League football, they do membership schemes, right? But you can buy a membership scheme and you get 1 ticket for your membership, or you get a 3-ticket membership scheme or a 5-ticket membership scheme. Now, when there's tickets available, you can go and buy that ticket. So you've already prepaid for a ticket. So there's ways of doing it that isn't a straight cash grab like this looks like to me. And you actually get your money back by spending more money with the club. Or you might get 50% discount on stuff at the club shop. Or you might get a scarf sent to you. Or whatever it is, but you actually get something in return. At the minute, people have been asked to pay money for nothing, essentially.
Yeah.
For a chance of buying a ticket.
Well, this is something I've said a few times. I think this is all. I basically they haven't got they haven't got everything lined up in a row yet, and that's what they've got wrong. So the membership package could have looked a lot more appealing had they had this app available that they've hinted at a few times, right? Because it should have all run through the app. It should have all been, this is what we're launching. This is the fulcrum of the membership scheme. These are all the benefits you're going to get through the app. You're going to get this, discounts, ticket giveaways, bloody extra merchandise drops, pre-sales, behind paywalled media stuff that no one else is going to be able to get unless they remember. All these things are with an app that you can do that make it a little bit more appealing. And the apps, we don't know when we're going to get this app. We don't know when.
No.
So basically, they've had to launch it when they have because the app's not ready yet, and it just doesn't look as appealing. The whole package should have been ready at the same time to go, so that when people bought their membership, they were getting access to everything. And I'm not saying that's going to necessarily satisfy everyone, but I just think it's clear. I think that in itself is a sign that this has not been thought out well enough, and it's been rushed a bit. And I'm no expert in app development, but they've had a year to get this sorted.
But really, it shouldn't be launched unless it's ready to go, and that's the whole point of this whole thing. And it feeds into this other question about Tom Burwell, Chris, because Tom Burwell obviously has been the face of this membership scheme launch. Whether it would have happened as it has if David Bruce has been there is open to conjecture. You'd think a Sunderland fan like David Bruce wouldn't have let this go out if it wasn't really beneficial to the supporters. But there's been a few other bits and pieces, hasn't it? The argument, we've got to do it because every other club's doing it. It doesn't stand up to me because, well, do something different, do something better, do something else. It's not going to have as good. And like when people are paying money out for season tickets, and then you ask people to pay more money for a season ticket plus,
yeah,
it just doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah, I agree. Look, on paper, it looks awful when you just read it out. When you read it out and when you look at it, it doesn't look good. And I'm not going to go in on Tom Burwell. I'll just say the jury's still out on him, which I probably think is fair enough. But I don't think it's a coincidence that David Bruce went when he did and Tom Burwell came in when he did, and then this is happening. This was the next stage. In the same way as Christian Speakman got us up out into the Premier League, and then Gasolfi came in to do the next stage. It's the same at the top as well. David Bruce came in, he got everybody on board, he got all the fans on side, he did everything the fans to make things happy. Now Tom Burwell's remit is to keep that rolling whilst also taking into account that we're trying to expand into the international market with international fans, with the Elvis deal that will potentially get us more fans in the US. Then we go on tour in the US to get more fans, and then we'll put on all events in, how many people in New York walked past wondering what was going on and then got talking to someone, and they're now lifelong Sunderland fans. But it's those people that maybe bought a top, maybe bought a Sunderland shirt and go, if I go over to the UK, I might go and see them. But the thing is, until that point, how do you get money out of them? And to be honest, Martin, fans like you and me as well, because I'm in the same boat, just I don't have to fly all the way around the world to get there. I'm an exile down in Sheffield, so I can't, with the kids and stuff like that, I'm not able to get a season ticket. So I like to try and get to games when I can. So it shafts me in that way that I have to spend more. But it's how the club are looking, going, how do we squeeze more money out of the likes of us and those American fans who might come over once every 2 years whilst they're not spending money on the club? So
there's different ways of doing that, though, isn't it?
No, I agree.
You can get people to spend. You can incentivize people to spend if you give them something in return. Now, what really frustrates me with all of this, right? It's happening at the best point of the club's history for however long.
Yeah,
it's happening when the good times are here, and they're taking the piss with asking people to spend so much for nothing in return.
Well, I was just about to say that I don't think they've done it in the right way. And we said this last time when we said it. I said last time that this sort of thing is inevitable this sort of thing was always going to happen. It was just, how was it going to happen? How was it going to be communicated? And they've got that all wrong. This membership thing was going to happen at some point, and people are going to have to shell out for the privilege of being able to have a chance of having a ticket. If the club grows, we have to get used to stuff like this. This is just going to happen. But the club need to get it right, and the club haven't got it right. The club, as you said, Martin, you go down that, and I said last time as well, I was frustrated in the way that they presented it. Oh, look at what you can get for this membership, all these ticky boxes. When you look down the ticky boxes, you go, actually, you're getting absolutely nout.
Yeah.
And they were going, oh, look at this fantastic deal that you get for your membership. Like what? No, I can put my name into a hat. I mean, basically, that was it. And like you said, look, there needed to be more. They needed to offer more. I've signed up to it just because I need to be in the hats to get. And this is the thing that I think this is what they've relied on. They've relied on the fact that if you don't do this, you've got no chance of getting a ticket. So people just do it. I mean,
No,
it's like back in the day. Remember when going way back now, but remember when Freddie Fletcher was caught talking about Newcastle fans, where he was like, it doesn't matter what we'll stick on the shirt, they'll always buy it. And it's a bit like that. If we want to go to the games, and if season ticket holders want to be in the ballot for away games, and especially with the Europa League, they have to go season ticket plus. And it's like, it's taking the choice out of people's hands. But it's not like you're looking whether this has got value, because it's just you have to do it if you want to be in with a chance of a ticket. So they've done it. They've almost put a gun to people's head and said, if you don't take this membership, you haven't got a chance, so stuff you. They needed to give more and just say, look, if you sign up to this membership, 20 quid off a shirt or something like that at the shop, because then you almost get your money back in some ways for season ticket holders or something like that. Or, just something where you go, actually, I can see where that money's gone a little bit, rather than it's just disappeared into the ether and I've got a chance of getting a ticket.
Well, that's right.
So everything around it's been crap, and it's crap on paper, but it was inevitable. And I get the feeling that we're just stuck with it. And I said last time, I'm all for getting on the bandwagon like Crystal Palace fans, where we show our, annoyance with things and all this sort of stuff, because this is a football thing. Like you said, Sunderland could have done it different, but I think what Tom Burwell's he's come in and looked at all the top clubs' memberships and went, well, that's what they give, so let's just give Sunderland fans that. Whereas Sunderland fans have gone, hang on a minute, we've gone through a load of crap, and actually, you're just shafting us here.
Well, when I was at the collective meeting where this was proposed to people, and I think there'd already been a few different meetings with other fan groups and stuff to go over it, they were saying that they'd looked at every other club's membership schemes and what you get for it. And I think it's probably the case across the board that you don't get very much. And actually, a lot of clubs are paying a lot more than we are. I don't know whether it's a Premier League wide thing, almost every club has the same issue, in that, particularly the well-run clubs, where there's just too many fans to satisfy the demand. And this is their way of dealing with it. Whether it's the right way or not, we're about to find out. It doesn't feel like it at the minute, because, it's a lot harder for people to get tickets who want to buy tickets. That's the top and bottom of it. It's been made harder, and you're having to pay for the privilege. Now, the way to offset that should be with other benefits.
Yeah.
At the minute, there's none. There's none. And people might have heard us talking about the app thing earlier and going, well, I don't care about an app. But that should have been the centerpiece, and there should have been loads of benefits to using it. And eventually that might be the case, but right now we don't know if it will be. We've been told about an app. That's about it. That's all we know. What's this app going to give us? What benefits are we going to get as a result of it? They've only just last week asked everybody to go to the one account system. So rather than having different accounts for ticketing and the merchandise part of the website and the video part of the website, it's all going to be under one login, which is in preparation for launching an app. But it's come after you've asked people to buy memberships, But,
yeah. And I tell you what, just quickly, Gav, if that app rolls out and doesn't work and is crap,
yeah, there'll be hell on.
Now, I've just jumped on the Man City website and had a look at their membership options, right? So they've got different categories of membership. There's a 38 quid one and a 65 quid one for adults and the 20 quid one for juniors. I paid 70 odd quid for me and my lad, so 85 quid for a premium membership and junior membership in Man City's relatively equivalent. Man City membership, you get £5 off every men's home game ticket you buy. So immediately you can get money back there, so you can redeem that money. You can receive transferred tickets from other supporters. 10% off all women's games, home team games. You get 25 quid. Sorry, I'll just go through this. 25 quid online shop voucher. So immediately, if you get your online shop voucher for 25 quid and you go to 8 games in the season, that's your 65 quid back to start with. And then you can actually be in credit. You get video calls with men's and women's players. You get a 10% discount at the club shop throughout the whole season. So just 10% to use all the time. And there's digital membership passes, City Plus TV subscriptions, all that sort of stuff. So there's avenues that you can see to immediately get that 65 quid back easily. We don't have any.
Yeah.
No, that's true. Yeah, when I was going to come in there, I was just thinking with our subscription that they're asking people to pay at the minute, none of those, as you've said, none of those avenues are there. None of them. You know, immediately I'm saying there needs to be something else. There needs to be okay, right? What can I get off at the club shop with this? What can I what behind the scenes media stuff can I get? What additional media stuff can I get? Is there going to be a club podcast? Is there going to be, can we have access to maybe a separate press conference with Labris or some? Do you know what I mean? All these little, like, to me, it's got to sound appealing. So then you go, yeah, I would love that. Well,
it's got to have value though, as Martin said.
Yeah, that's right.
Like you can say, well, if I've spent 60 quid, oh well, if like it's 10% off at the club shop and you're going to buy the Benz loads of gear, 10% might actually end up being more than 60 quid. So you go, actually, I'm going to get my money back anyway. And if it's like that, and you go, well, I can see where my 60 quid's going, but this is the thing, Gav. You mentioned about that meeting as well, and one of the big things is about the communication. When they're selling it is this fantastic offer, and everybody can see it's not. And the question came in. The question started. Do you think that I am right to be suspicious about Tom Burwell? This is where it starts. When people see them taking money for nothing, and some people from Sunderland can see right through it, and there's no value in it. That's when people start getting suspicious. And then anything now the club do on that front, people are going to look at it in that light because they know that, oh, well, they ripped us off last time by doing that. So likelihood is they're going to keep on doing it.
And this is the first big thing that Burwell's been the figurehead for, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's come into the club, and this is the first thing he's kind of launched, being the spokesperson for. And look, I think there was like a £5 or something off the streaming pass for the pre-season friendlies and stuff like that. So you can chuck that into the mix if you want. But, again, I'm just using this Man City one because I've just pulled it up on the internet. But you could go to 4 home games, spend your 25 quid at the club shop, and you've got your money back.
Yeah.
And anything like this, you've got to incentivize additional spend. So here you're going, well, you can get your 65 quid back effectively if you spend 200 or 300 quid with us. That's fine, because you can see how we can get it back. And at the minute, we've rushed this scheme through, charging people through the nose when we're on the up. And, as we've seen countless times before, the club needs the supporters. And the moment things start to go a little bit wobbly, it's going to be people like us, people listening to this, who will stick by them. The club needs to stick by them. And I kind of feel it's taking the piss a little bit. Anyway, we're going to take a short break after that point and come back after a couple of ads.
This message is brought to you by Apple Card. Shave ice by the beach. A trip to the state fair. And a throwback flick at the local drive-in. They're more than just items to check off the summer bucket list. They're also opportunities to earn 2% daily cash back when you use your Apple Card with Apple Pay. Apply for Apple Card now and use in minutes with Apple Pay. Subject to credit approval. Apple Card is issued by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, Salt Lake City branch. Terms and more at applecard.com.
Here's your report.
Oh, thanks, Jane. I wish I could hire someone just like you.
Try LinkedIn Hiring Pro. It's more than a job board. It's like the recruiter you always wished you had. Hiring Pro uses real-time insights to match your role to LinkedIn's unique network of professionals and delivers a short list of best fit candidates. You'll spend less time sorting applicants and more time talking to the right people.
Let's do it. You're irreplaceable, Jane, but another you would be great.
Hire right the first time. Post your job for free on LinkedIn today at linkedin.com/quality.
Welcome back to Haway, the podcast. We've got another Q&A episode for you today. And I've got a question here, Gav. I'm going to chuck it to you. And I know Ian was desperate to answer this one in the last Q&A. And he was calling me all sorts after I didn't get to it after we finished recording. But you can take his place for this one. Dave SAFC on X asks, the Mags have spent 400 million in the last year. Where do you think Sunderland would be if we had that much to spend? And it's an interesting point, isn't it? Because, money isn't necessarily a guarantee of success, but the way that we are operating and the way that we run the football side behind the scenes anyway, and we're well thought out and deliberate and methodical, you'd think a decent sum like that would have been well spent anyway, wouldn't you?
Well, I think that's been a big gripe of a lot of Newcastle fans from what I've heard and seen. They've seen what we spent last year and we've surpassed them. And they're like, how on earth did the Macrams manage to do that when we spent this much? So, we haven't even spent half of that, have we? I'm pretty sure we spent about somewhere in the region of 160, 170 million last
So it was last
year.
summer, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and then, we bought Angulo in January. Tarby was a couple of million, wasn't he? So we didn't spend a great amount there. So if we're being generous, let's take it up 200 million. So what could we have done with an extra 200 million? I mean, we would have probably went out and got the players we were talking about at the start. Another left back, but we're talking about elite levels of players. And I think we have actually shone a light on them, I think. And I think they know it as well. Because you look at their change in strategy, this cringe Newcastle 2.0 stuff. But they've effectively tried to do exactly what we did last summer. They've went out and bought young, unproven players, albeit at a much higher markup than we did, which shows how well we did to get the likes of Siddiqui Roofs, etc. last year. But regardless, they've done that. Apparently they're signing Pierre-Emile Højbjerg from Marseille. And that's that experienced central midfield leader that we did signing Granit Xhaka. So they kind of copied our homework to an extent. But the money they've spent is unbelievable. And it just points to not a lot of joined up thinking in a football club, and it doesn't matter how long you've been in the Premier League and whether you've won trophies recently or you've been in the Champions League. They're not well run. We are. So what could we have done with another 200 million? I think they would blow our minds with another 200 million to play with. And hey, we might have another 200 million to play with this summer. We don't know. I'd be surprised if we spent quite that much, but it'll not be a kick in the arse off if we kind of read into what Reggie's is saying about being precise and being targeted and having very specific players in mind. My bold claim would be that we're probably going to spend upwards of 50, 60 million on at least one player this summer. I've just got that feeling we're going to do that. And that would take us probably not far off that kind of spend. But we're in a lot better shape than they are. And we haven't even got started in the transfer market yet. So exciting, I think. And it's a good comparison to draw because we love sticking the knife in a bit more with them lot, don't we?
Well, I just want to stick my 2 pence in with that because I don't think our squad had looked that much different, if I'm completely honest. Because I don't think we would have spent it in some ways. I think because the way we're building this club is being sustainable. And the other thing that from the position we came from, we bought exactly the right players with the right mentality at the right stage of their careers to fit where we were and what we wanted to do. And it all just slotted into place. Like, let's say we had bought the Billy Big Bollocks, for 70 million, 60 million or something last summer. It might not have worked because that's what the Mags have done. They've tried to buy these big players for far too much money. And these big players have went, well, actually, as soon as it starts going south or as soon as it starts getting tough or whatever, actually, like Tonali was, I don't think his heart was ever in playing for Newcastle, but they seemed to love him and wanted him to be their hero and all this sort of stuff, but they'd spent far too much money on him. If we bought a player like that who was half-arsed, he wouldn't have fit in this squad. And I don't think necessarily the monetary value, spending 500 million. If we'd spent 500 million, we might actually have been worse off than we were the last season because we bought the right players. And actually, when we said 400 million, maybe it was a case where actually Kirill Louis-Dreyfus could have spent that much money, but actually we thought we want to build and buy the right players and build the right squad and do it in the right way, obviously for whatever the rules are called, DFS, SCS, NDF, whatever it is this season. So to follow those rules and, going into the Europa League now with the financial restrictions there, we're in just a fantastic place and to grow year after year. So when the Mags got all this money, how many people, I was one of them that said, be careful what you wish for, because chucking money at stuff doesn't always work. And I just think, I don't necessarily think we were restricted in how much we spent last summer. We bought exactly the type of, look at Ronaldo, look at Michele, look at their characters. They were perfect for us. And if we spent twice as much on a player, he might have not have had that heart. And so I don't think necessarily the amount of money is everything in our recruitment.
I think you made a really good point about Tonali there. We wouldn't have signed him.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it was obvious he didn't want to go there. It was talked about. He was the Milan captain. That was his team. The money was far too good for Milan to refuse. They had to sell him. They probably knew this gambling ban was looming and didn't let Newcastle know about it.
Took a punt on him, didn't he?
So, well, but that again, when you think about how we recruit, we would have probably found out about his problems, would have assessed his character.
Mm-hmm.
We would have, if we'd got the slightest hint he didn't fancy it, we wouldn't have paid the money. I've heard Gusolfi say this. I heard him say it was something along the lines of, we've sat on Zoom calls before with players who we were trying to sign and we just didn't get a good feeling and we walked away from the deal.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly how it should be. Because then you end up in a position like they are, where as soon as there's a bit of adversity being felt at Newcastle, they've all jumped ship, including the manager. They've all jumped ship. And that is an ominous sign for any football club, that if your best players, your leaders, have decided, I need to get out of here, that something bad is around the corner. And thank God, I just don't ever see us under this current leadership being in that position, because we are very, very careful about who we bring in and the type of people we want around our football club and representing us. And that's through learned experience. That's because the last time we were in the Premier League, we did everything wrong repeatedly until we ended up in League One. And some of these clubs have got to flirt with the brink of extinction, death, relegation to understand how you should function. And again, the reason I mentioned Spurs earlier when I was talking around this point is because they've just been in the exact same situation and got away with it. And for these clubs, relegation to the Championship could be fatal. Look at Leicester. They need someone to come in and buy that football club. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and Leicester 10 years ago won the Premier League. They're now in League One. In that time, they've also won an FA Cup. So they've been successful in the last decade. Leicester are in the shit, big style. They're in masses of debt. The owners can't afford to keep the club running. Their other businesses outside of football are struggling. And by all accounts, the owners at Leicester are asking for 140 million for that club. No club in the Championship has ever gone for that amount of money, ever. And they're in League One. So the money the owners are asking for is ridiculous. They're not going to get it. There's no prospect of a sale around the corner. And that should be a warning sign to everybody of just how quickly things can go to shit. And I know we keep talking about Newcastle. It was in the question, but I would be very, very worried if I was them. There's so many signs pointing that this is going to be a tough year for them. And yeah, I'm so glad that we're in a position where we can sit here and have these conversations and be like, look, we came out on the other side and we've learned from it. And that's why if we had an extra 200 million to play with, I know it's probably a bit tongue in cheek, that question, but genuinely, we would be I would back us to get it so right if we did want to spend another 200 million. But we're in a good position where you said, Chris, we're in a position where we probably don't need to spend 200 million. We're right now we're in a really good place, and it's not about fees ultimately, is it? It's about character and personality and types of people you want at your football club. And some of those players don't cost you 50, 60 million. They cost you a lot less. And smart recruitment gets you those players.
Well, the amount of times we've bought a player who's at a stage of their career that's got a point to prove, and I think potentially Michele is one of. If you look at Michele as an example, we got him for probably half as much as he's probably worth, at least, because he was at a point in his career where he wasn't really getting the games to showcase what he can do, and he had a point to prove, and he came with proper fire in his belly that he wanted to make the move work, and he wanted to really give it a go with Sunderland, and we didn't pay big money for him. But if you buy a player for 3 times as much as Michele, who comes in, like I said, Barry Big Bollocks, I'm the best at the club that I was before and one of the best in the world, you don't get that. And I think we know that in our recruitment. And so I just, sometimes when you've got all this money and you try and buy the best talent, it's not necessarily the right thing to do.
No, it's absolutely not. And you think with that much money, if we had that to spend, you'd be boxing as clever as we have done previously. And it's always a temptation. If you've got so much money to spend, you don't actually be as strategic and as picky and as fussy, and you throw stuff at it, don't you? And you see some of the fees, and I'm not just picking on Newcastle players here.
Yes, you are.
I kind of am. But you look at the fees that have been paid for Anthony Gordon, Gnarly, and Bruno. I just don't see value in any of those 3 players at all. I don't see how they're worth what those clubs have paid for them.
I'd have been disappointed if any of those had joined Sunderland this summer.
Well, and again, you're kind of going into territory for things being clipped and played back in the future, aren't we? But I just don't guess. I just don't see what people are attracted to in either or any of those 3 players. I just don't see what they bring.
Well, like you said, with the way we're recruiting, what I was saying, if I would be disappointed spending that much on one of those, when with the way we're recruiting, we could bring 3 or 4 in who in 2 years' time could be, world beaters. Look at likes of Siddiqui. I mean, he could be whatever he wants to be now. Now he's hit the ground running. So that would be my preference, given that much money.
Right, we are going to move on to another question now from Furious Columbo, which is a brilliant username from X. And Chris, I'll come to you first on this one. This is a hypothetical one, and I know you love hypotheticals. If you could pick one former Sunderland player from the past to join the current squad for next season, who would you choose? The caveat is that it's the best version of that player only while at Sunderland. Their achievements before and after do not matter, i.e. Semenyo. So he's given Antoine Semenyo there as a player who, if you said you're going to bring him in, you're going to say, well, he wasn't that fantastic under Phil Parkinson for us, so maybe you wouldn't. So only based on previous Sunderland form, which ex-player would you add to the side for this season?
Oh, bloody hell.
It's a good one, isn't it?
It is a good question. I almost feel like I need 10 minutes to go back through all the squads from the past to pick one. Oh, bloody hell.
This one comes immediately to mind for me, but I'll hold that till Chris has had his chance.
Well, one came immediately in my mind when I read that question as well, Gavin. I've got that player written down.
Well, I mean, I've already got a couple, but I'm starting to think, Gav mentioned him earlier. He would maybe, Ahmad Diallo would maybe...
That's the one
fit,
of my
fit on that, nicely on that right-hand side. You've got a bit of a poacher in Darren Bent, maybe. Do you need, when you need those goals, to mix it up top, because Isidore and Robbie are very different players. I'm trying to think of a good centre half that might complement the ones we've got. I'm trying to think of left backs as well. Go on then. I said Diallo, so if you've got anyone, you could pipe up. I'm trying to think.
Well, Ahmad was the first name that came to mind. This might be a bit of a curveball, but just thinking about the way the game's going, the complete lack of this type of player, and the fact we've already got one of this type of player, Cameron Jones, I think would be fantastic in this team. Dynamic, quick, strong, agile, could score goals, was a menace. I think under Regis's coaching, you could soon shake the tag of lazy off, because he was often accused of being a little bit lax, wasn't he? But imagine having Brobby and Cameron Jones as your two forward options. I think that would be fantastic. Centre halves, centre halves.
I was thinking of centre half.
The Sunderland version of this player was brilliant. Johnny Evans, I think, would be excellent in there. He was great for us in the Premier League. Really, really like Johnny Evans. Went on to do so much in his career. But the Sunderland version of Evans was a top Premier League centre half, wasn't he? And I think if we're talking left backs, and again the trend of the current game, Mickey Gray when he was at his pomp at Sunderland, for me, I know he wasn't a natural left back, but somebody who he's a little bit different to Ronaldo. Great crosses into the box. Would hit that English quarter, the homegrown quarter for the Europa League games. Yeah,
the other one I'll stick in there is left back, maybe Danny Rose.
Ah, yes, great choice. Yeah, great shout.
Maybe a left back. Maybe Stefan Schwarz as another old head, as an understudy to Granit Xhaka, and he could maybe play that holding role in the modern game.
Nobody's mentioned Kevin Phillips yet, by the way.
Well, that was the one I had written down.
Well, the thing is,
I had two, but that was
I was thinking Quinn and Phillips, but the thing is, you can't have Quinn because he needs to play a little man. You need to play a certain way that we don't play. That I don't think Quinn we get the best out of Quinn.
Nah, but Kevin Phillips, in terms of adding a goal poacher to the team, like the version of Phillips in that first and second season in the Premier League were brilliant. He could score any sort of goal, and chuck him into the squad, have him in the mix in the squad. You could go Billy Whitehurst. If people think Brian Brobby's a tough centre forward to play against, wait till they've seen Billy Whitehurst. The other one I would chuck in, and this is just to rebalance some of the scandalous things I listened to last week from Johnny Hawley, Julio. Julio was a left back.
Oh, well then surely you've got to have Seb Larson in, haven't you? According
Absolutely
to
not, because Julio was far better than Seb Larson.
Johnny was 2 when Julio Arca signed for Sunderland.
Johnny the embryo. Johnny the glint in the milkman's eye, slacking off Julio Arca. Hell.
To be fair, it was an unpopular opinions pod, and I think you've proven that point.
Martin's still furious.
I'm surprised none of you just asked Johnny how old he was when Julio played, because it's the first thing I messaged, and he was like, "Oh, I was 2." I was like, "Well, explains a lot."
But then he went, but I remember seeing him. I went, piss off. Would you ever go up to a 4-year-old and ask their opinion and take it on a player? I'm not having that.
No. Sorry, Johnny, we love you, really. But there we go.
You know what the problem is? I'm going to be thinking about that all day, and suddenly I'm just going to be like sitting with the kids and then suddenly shouting the Sunderland players' name out, going, yes, he would fit.
Well, I guess, the thing that the question leaves itself open to, it doesn't necessarily specify any sustained achievements at Sunderland. So you could chuck Stan Barger in there as a centre-half, couldn't you? Because if you could bottle that Arsenal game.
Well, you could. The one I was actually thinking about, if it wasn't for injuries, who would fit into this squad, bit of versatility in there, John Mensah.
Ooh.
A lot of pace. He was a crack. He was, if it wasn't for injuries, he was a cracking player if it wasn't for injuries. But he would fit perfectly into this squad, I think, with the versatility, pace and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, that's an interesting
we could sit here all day doing this, couldn't we?
Oh,
really?
Yeah. I could. I genuinely could.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it? You think about what this squad actually needs and who from our past. Honestly, I reckon Kenwin would be perfect. Imagine Kenwin Jones, because there's him. Look at the reason Brobby gets so much attention is because he's so different, and those type of centre forwards aren't playing at any level in the game anymore. They've kind of died out. And Cameron Jones was an absolute menace in a time when Drogba was at the peak of his powers and centre halves were more used to physical centre forwards. Can you imagine Can you imagine being like 0-0, we need a goal, and you're high on Kenwyn Jones and Brian Brobby together? Imagine being those centre halves. You wouldn't want to know, would you?
Sessegnon?
Don't know
Would
if
he
he'd
fit
get
in?
away with play. I don't think Lebris would deal with him. I think he wouldn't get away with sauntering around the pitch 4 times out of 5. He would.
Would he put up with Steve Mulbrunk having 20 fags at half time and stuff?
He was
You
a
reckon?
grafter though, so maybe
He was,
Steve would
he
have fit in this
He
team.
was.
Yeah,
He'd
so
be good on that right hand side.
Here's one for you, just to chuck in. Alan Johnson.
Yeah, wingers who cut inside weren't really a
Picky
thing
winger,
back then, were
cutting
they?
size.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
think he'd probably do better now than he was able to do back in the late 90s.
Well, I would have liked to have seen him how he got on the Premier League. To be fair, one of life's, who knows.
Let's round off on this. Andy Melville. Let's get it.
Right, we've hit a peak. Let's move on.
Move on. We've got 2 short, sharp questions to finish off with. And Joe Braun asks, would you want to leave the names off the back of shirts moving forward and just have the numbers on the back of shirts instead? Gav, the names have been on shirts for a couple of decades now, haven't they? Squad numbers,
I mean,
when we go back to 1 to 9 and no names on the back of shirt, 1 to 11.
oh, aye. Was it Burnley under Sean Dyche who were they named a proper 1 to 11, didn't they? Where every number correlated with a position, and it just had to be Sean Dyche. Didn't it? If you've seen any of the pre-season games we've played without names on the shirts, and it actually looks really good on the. I mean, we've only played 1 game in the home shirt, but it looked really good, I thought, and maybe it would add to the retro look, but. I don't think you have that option. It's a requirement because referees don't know the names of the players. So, as much as it would probably satisfy my urge for everything to be retro and old-fashioned looking, to have no names on the back of shirts, I don't think we're going to be quite afforded that luxury.
Yeah. Just a quick question about the away strip, and I'm just trying to think how low that black kind of collar thing comes down the back. What colour will the writing be on the back? Will it be lower than the black, so it'll be just in black on the pink?
It's just the standard Premier League writing, isn't it? I think I've seen people.
It'll be on the pink.
It'll be on the
yeah. Well, if you go on the club website, they've got pre-printed shirts, so you should be able to see it, shouldn't you? So people are going to listen to us do this in real time because I'm going right to the website now. I'm just looking on kits away.
Well, just in terms of the numbers,
down.
just while you do that as a bit of a time killer, it does annoy me that people still, well, it doesn't annoy me, but when you hear pundits talking about, oh, he's a number 10, he's a number 6, he's a number 8, that means absolutely nothing to anyone under the age of, 30, 25, being generous? I mean, anybody under those ages just go, what the hell are you talking about? What is a number 10? Because back in the day, you used to know that the number 6 was maybe the more defensive one, or the number 4 was there's a playmaker in midfield, or the 8 were pushed forward, 7 was always out wide right, 11 was on the left. And now when they say numbers, kids must be just like, what the hell is he talking about? How do they understand it now? It's been 30 odd years now since moved to squad numbers, wasn't it?
Well, we were at Middlesbrough, weren't we? And was it 94 or something when we first did squad numbers and names in the back of the shirts and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's no.
It was a massive thing as well.
It was.
Unfortunately, there's no example, by the way, of what I was talking about.
Oh, yeah.
But looking at the back of the shirt, Chris, the black on the back it's literally on the shoulders.
So it's too high, right?
There's plenty of room. It's not as if you go on the club website, you can see the front and the back in the same image, and it's the black on the front is a lot lower than it is on the back. For that reason, I would imagine to allow for the room to get the names on the back. So I guess that answers the question.
Yeah,
excellent. Right, we've got one more. I'll give this to you, Chris, from Rob Lowe. He asks, if FIFA banned the colour red on shirts, what colour would you like to see us adopt?
Dear me. Whoa. That's a good question. I love us in a blue away strip, but I wouldn't like us to play in blue all the time. I remember...
What didn't we originally play in blue? I think we did before we adopted red and white. So if they did away with red, you could very strongly argue that it was a very retro heritage thing to go back to blue.
I'd need to get out a certain book by a certain Andrew Smithson to work that one out. Yeah, but I like us in a blue away strip. But I was going to say, I always remember what Roy Keane said when he was he said it's Sunderland proper, red and white, and then he went to Ipswich and he said everything's blue, and he said it's just everything's just blue and it's crap and all that. So I'm not sure I'd like us to it. Maybe because I remember a lovely Reg Vardy all white away strip, and the Scorpion Lager one last season at Roker Park.
Yeah.
So maybe all white. Maybe we'll go all Real Madrid if we went in red and white.
Yeah, accused of copying Leeds then. That's what they did, wasn't it? They gave up the blue and white or blue and yellow shirts and went to white because it was like Real Madrid.
We'll go black shorts or something then, or something like that, just to mix it up.
I'll go black and white.
Oh yeah, I know. I didn't think that through. Did I? Clearly, all white. Go back to that. Go back to that.
There's your clip for TikTok this week. Yeah. Chris wants us playing in black and white. If you if you look at the coat of arms for Sunderland, it's blue and yellow, which is obviously a colour scheme we've used often, isn't it, down the years? Yeah. So if we had to do away with red, I'd go blue and yellow because it's still something I associate with Sunderland. We've had some nice yellow and blue kits down the years.
Excellent. Right. I think that'll do us for today, chap. So thank you very much, Chris.
Yeah, no problem. Cheers. And actually, just on the clipping, I will give a shout out to everyone who spots any mistakes in our pods to send us which pod it was in and maybe when it was. And we might end up at some point doing a little clips of the month or however many we get. And you can tell us all about our faux pas. We've had a few lately with the old Tommy Robinson keeping goal and Johnny's dad slipping one in at the back post. So if anyone spots any, let us know when it was in which pod, and we'll maybe stick a clips of the month together. You never know.
Yeah.
We might have to increase the storage on the email account for that, might we? And thank you very much, Gav, as always.
Yes, and just to add to that, we are on TikTok now. So if you're one of these young, hip, trendy, you're one of the young'uns, get yourself on TikTok and follow Roker Report because we are there now. And that's where you can find most of these funny clips we've been talking about. We were attempting to send people viral for all the wrong reasons. The Tommy Robinson one the other day with James was class, wasn't it? And it was well received everywhere. It was the immediate moment of realization and dread that he'd said that name out loud, and he was like, "Oh God, what have I done?"
It's gonna haunt James for some time, isn't it?
The best bit of that clip for me was Ian saying, "Wasn't he a right winger?" And nobody really picked up on that. It was very quick. Well done, Ian.
That was very good. I did momentarily think about taking that out and editing it and doing James a favour, but I thought it was too good, far too good. And we had to leave it in. So there we go. And thank you to everyone for listening. We'll be back tomorrow on Haway the podcast. And don't forget, there's daily Sunderland content over at rokerreport.sbnation.com. Until tomorrow, it's goodbye from us.